All right, so just finished my evening meditation, and one of the values of meditating is that you get to see firsthand and close up how the mind functions and how it is constructing our experience here. And during this sit, I got to work with fear, and I got to see how fear impacts our experience. So, fear is contractive. When you feel afraid, you feel contraction, often in the body. And this contraction also affects the mind. So, for instance, if you have an experience that invokes fear and you feel that contraction, all of a sudden there's a sense of solidity in the body, and there's also an experience of solidity in the mind. And when I say that, I mean these stories and narratives that are occurring at the level of the mind become contracted, they become tightened and solidified. So, for instance, if I'm at work and somebody glares at me, and that invokes fear. Oh, what did I do to them? Did I not submit an email to them on time? Did I mess up? That fear, that experience of fear, contracts the psyche, and it actually starts to solidify these stories where it's like, oh yeah, no, I definitely forgot to submit that, or I didn't do it right, or they just don't like me. And this fear solidifies these narratives and stories. And interestingly, if we want to counteract that, one thing that we can do is to approach life with kindness, with love, with the antithesis of fear, which you could call love. That would probably be the best word for it. And if we approach these circumstances through that lens of love of, oh, that person looked at me weird, maybe they're having a rough day, or maybe, their kid just got expelled from school, who knows, or they had a flat tire and someone flicked them off and shit, life happens. And instead of contracting into a state of fear, we approach it with a more open state, which is kindness. That love opens, the fear contracts. And when we do this, we'll also find that the narratives and the stories that are occurring in the mind are much more malleable because they have loosened like a knot. Like if we're trying to work with a knot, we need it to be loose in order to untangle it. If it's all tight and that fear is present, tightening this metaphorical knot, which is our narrative, then it's going to be very solid and unmovable, not very malleable. And if we approach these narratives, these stories with kindness, with love, then we're loosening these narratives. All of a sudden they have some space. And these narratives are very malleable then. We can start to see things in different ways because we're approaching them with a degree of kindness, with a degree of love. And once these narratives have been loosened to a certain extent, we can start to have more agency in choosing what narrative we want to feed, what narrative we want to choose. So when we have approached this situation, this metaphorical glare situation with a degree of love, we're like, oh man, that sucks. That person's probably having a hard day. Maybe I should buy them a coffee. Maybe I should go say, what's up? Are you doing okay? If we have that love, we can start to have more freedom in choosing that story. It's like, maybe, I knew their kid was sick. Maybe they're, maybe they got worse, or, maybe they're, again, just having a rough day. Or maybe it's just not even relevant. Maybe they were just, looking at me, and I just interpreted it as being weird or hostile. Try this for yourself. See what happens when we start to approach circumstances with that degree of kindness, which is, again, a cultivatable skill. When we do this, we might find that we have more space, more freedom in choosing what narrative we want to feed in any circumstance. In any event in our life, we are creating a narrative around it. This is inescapable. And again, if there's a lot of fear present in our lives, these narratives contract and they tighten up. And when we approach them with love, they loosen up. And just seeing this, again, through meditation, this is the best way that I've found to see these things firsthand. Because you can hear me say it, and that can definitely have an impact. But it's very different when you see it with your two eyes, when you're experiencing it in your mind, and you're just witnessing the effect of fear and the effect of kindness. And then at that point, you know for yourself how this stuff works. It's not a secret. It's just a byproduct of slowing down and seeing the mind clearly. We start to get agency, freedom, and perspective on the mind. So yeah, meditation was dope tonight, and that's again one of the unique values of meditation, is being able to really slow down and minimize the stimulus coming in, and just work with what's here, work with the mind and how it functions, because it does function in a certain way. There are mechanisms that are always occurring, that are constructing our experience, and when we start to see these clearly, see how fear contracts experience, contracts narrative, solidifies narrative and experience, and how kindness and love loosen it. Once we see that with our own two eyes, and you don't have to believe me, so again, it's just how it is. and this is, you can extrapolate this to many domains. My narrative about my past, relating to traumas, relating to pain, relating to, let's just look at traumas. So when there's trauma present, maybe there's fear of the pain of reliving that trauma, of what if that happens again to me. There's fear involved, and this fear contracts, solidifies a certain narrative, a certain story. The more intense the fear, the more intense the pain, the more intense the contraction. And thus, people living with a lot of trauma tend to have very tight stories, tight narratives about said trauma and about their lives. And this tightening not only affects your narrative of traumatic events, it affects your sense of self. Your sense of self becomes very solidified. I am this person, this hurt person who had these terrible things happen to them. This is, in a sense, very real, because this is what happens when the mind contracts through an experience of fear. So it's not like that experience is not valid or real, because it is, and it needs to be honored, and it needs to be loved. It needs to be approached with kindness. That pain, that fear, that hurt, these things have to be seen, felt, open to eventually, or they will linger for until we see them, until we approach them with kindness, and with that kindness loosen these narratives. Because whether we know it or not, they are all malleable, even if we are having an experience that they're actually very solid. Yes, right now they're solid. Yes, that's true. We need to accept that, see for what it is, and know that we can move beyond it whenever it feels right, whenever we have the support for ourselves or from others, from pets, to embrace difficult experience, to open to it, to embrace pain of reliving those experiences, of realizing, what if that happens again? Feeling that in the body, approaching it with kindness. Yeah, maybe it will happen. Am I okay with that? Is there still love for this person right here? Is there still love for this world? Because if there is, and once we start to cultivate that, because again, it is a cultivatable skill. No matter where we're at, we can start right here, right now, cultivating kindness, cultivating love. And if you can't feel that love, you are having an issue or having trouble cultivating kindness and love right now, cultivate love for yourself. Cultivate love for the fact that you can't cultivate love. Fuck it, whatever. It is what it is. I am as I am. And that's dead ass enough. And it always will be. And from this place of acceptance, of opening, of love, kindness, these narratives will slowly but surely start to loosen. And that is a fact. You can, again, see it for yourself through the cultivation of qualities of the heart, kindness, love. We can loosen deeply rooted pain, trauma, or rather narratives of trauma, so that we can start to see them in a different light, so that we can start to change the narrative to them, start to change our relationship to them. Because, again, they're malleable. And if we change our relationship to our traumas, instead of feeling like a victim, and there's nothing wrong with that, it's just not a place to stay forever. It's a place to honor that, yes, life is not fair. We need to recognize that. But at the same time, I don't think anyone wants to really stay there forever. So again, when anyone's ready, there is a way to move beyond it, and that is through the cultivation of kindness towards traumatic experience, towards pain, towards fear. The antithesis for fear is courage. And in that, there's an opening, there's an acceptance. And again, as the Buddha said, ehipassiko, that's a Sanskrit term, I think, and it means come see for yourself. Come see how the mind works. And this is just one way to see the impact of fear on the psyche, on experience, how it contracts in the body and the mind, in the chitta, the heart-mind. To see the impact of love, of kindness. There's an opening, an expansion. And this impacts the mind, the body, all of experience. And this is just one of the benefits of meditation. We can look at traumas in the past. We can also look at fear in the future. If we are looking towards the future and we have fear, now's a great time. Look at these global events. We have, violent conflict. We have disease. We have climate apocalypse looming. There's a lot of fear present in the collective right now, and I don't think that's it's obvious, actually. So what do we do with it? Again, the antithesis of fear would be what? Love. It can be viewed in that sort of binary sense. And when we have love present, looking at the events in the future, we can start to loosen those narratives. We can start to loosen the narrative of apocalypse. And this is not an understatement. We can start to change our relationship to potential events in the future, right here in the present, and that affects us right here in the present. What happens if I dismantle fear? It's a very real possibility for people to experience, for people to see for themselves. This is it's very meaningful for me to say this stuff because this is true. This is a fact. Try it for yourself. So look at something like fear of apocalypse. Pick your poison. Pick, violent, we all get nuked or we all die of lack of clean water. I could go on, but I won't. But feel that fear. See this vision of what happens if everyone that I love has to die in this lifetime. What happens if this life is cut short, all my plans cut short, and we have to die tragically and painfully? See that. It's hard. This is painful. And it's supposed to be. Where do you feel it? For me, I feel, just saying these words, I feel a contraction under the chest, under the right pec right now, kind of to the right. That's a somatic experience. Tuning into that, not to saying I'm afraid, shutting down, opening. What is occurring? I feel like an energy in my arm. Deep breath help move it. But tuning into this experience and opening to it, this contraction right here, it has a place. It's okay. Starting to see it with the lens of love, of kindness. It's okay. And over time, cultivating this practice, we can start to see these even apocalyptic events through the lens of kindness. And all of a sudden they loosen. They loosen to a degree where they're malleable. Where it's okay. It's okay if it has to be like that. And then all of a sudden, who am I to argue? If creation wants to flow in this direction. In one sense, I know who I am, I know what I am. I know that this body is only a small part of what I am. And in a sense, how could I argue with the bigger sense of self? I can't. Get out of the way. Have that faith. This is something that I think we've lost. Again, faith is another way to combat fear. I have faith in, if you want to insert name of God here, I have faith in that. Or I have faith in creation. I have faith in whatever this is. Whatever I am. I have faith in nature. I have faith in the cosmos. whatever word you want to give to it, but having that trust. And again, you don't have to rationalize it. We don't have to prove anything. We don't have to prove why I trust something. I don't have to prove why I have faith in source and creation. I just have to know that it is impacting me right now. This faith is creating an experience of opening, of freedom, here in the present for me. I don't need to have faith in God because I'm scared he's going to put me in hell. I have to have faith in God because it is saving my ass right now. It's necessary, this experience of faith. Because without it, life is raw. Because we don't know. We don't. We don't know what happens in our lives. We don't know what happens when we die. As much as some people would like to convince you, we don't. We just don't know. And if we don't have faith in something bigger than just what in ourselves, just what my mind can understand, then it's going to be difficult, for sure. So again, seeing the value of faith. Again, seeing what happens if we apply that. It's an extension. It's related to kindness, related to love, related to opening. It helps us relax. Where I don't have to figure it all out. I don't have to know everything. I trust this process. I have faith. And thus I can sleep at night. And again, just seeing how that impacts the system. So, yeah, I guess full circle. Seeing how the mind is constructing experience, seeing how fear functions as a feedback loop in a sense. The more I am scared, the more I am contracting. If I'm very scared and terror, things are very solid and real. Notice this for yourself. And when things are very solid and real, there's something very real to be afraid of. It functions in a sort of feedback loop. And whereas if I approach something with love, these narratives get looser. My body loosens. If I approach things with kindness, things loosen. And then applying that to narratives in the past and stories about the future. And seeing what it does right here and now. And then again, not taking my word for it, just trying these practices out. Seeing what happens. Another interesting thing is, if you're really afraid, try seeing how afraid can I make myself right now. It seems counterintuitive, but if we do that, what we're doing is opening actually to the experience of fear. We're saying, oh, how scared can I get right now? And you'll notice that actually you don't get to like a level of terror. Why? Because you are opening. You're not contracting anymore. So again, there's a value in viewing experience, in a sense, through this sort of binary lens of fear and love, and recognizing the impact of both. And none are better than, fear is not worse than love. There's a place for both. The freedom is having the agency to choose, having the seeing, to recognize if I'm in a state of a lot of fear. There's probably a lot of solidification occurring. If there's a lot of solidification of narratives, of experience of self, experience of world, there's probably fear present. I mean, there is fear present. And if life becomes very fluid, very malleable, we'll notice there's a lot of love present. When life is easy, we can change the stories about ourselves. When life is good, when we've cultivated love and kindness in our lives, we can start to change the narratives of what life is in itself, what this is right now. It becomes malleable. We can start to make it as beautiful as we can imagine. Make a story that is deeply fulfilling, meaningful, rich, sacred. A word that a lot of people don't use nowadays outside of spiritual circles. This experience of sacredness is rich, gives life meaning, depth. I feel connected to against something beyond myself. This is not a useless experience. It is extremely important in my mind to cultivate senses of sacredness, senses of beauty. And we can do that. But if the first thing that we have to do is to approach whatever narratives that are occurring for us right now with kindness. Saying, oh, I wish I could view my past in a better light. I wish I could just let go of my traumas. It's okay that you can't. In fact, it's necessary to accept and be okay with the fact that maybe you can't. It's paradoxical, but what happens when we do this? What happens when we surrender to what life is giving us right now, to the stories that are occurring for us right now? If we surrender to them, open to them, they start to loosen. And it's again paradoxical, but approaching our fear of the future and our traumas in the past with radical acceptance. Radical acceptance. And this means facing these things, feeling these things, opening to these things. And this is, it can be a lifelong path. I will say that you can make radical, now I'm saying that word a lot, but you can make dramatic progress quickly. Depends on your ability, your willingness to open to this pain, to this fear, to really see it, to really sit with it. And you don't have to torture yourself. It's a beautiful practice is what's called touch and go. It's touching into these feelings of pain, of lack, of trauma, of fear, but not killing yourself. Being able to detach from them when necessary. Put your attention on something else. Turn on a show, read a book, go outside, play with your dog. But just becoming intimate with these feelings over time. And this will transform experiences, will transform our relationship to life, our relationship to pain, our relationship to trauma, our relationship to fear, and even our relationship to death. It's all workable. And meditation helps to slow down the mind so you can see these things clearly. And thanks for watching.